People's mobility is a fundamental success factor for businesses in an increasingly complex world. At a time when international organizations are looking to penetrate new markets, the need for a trusted global mobility provider is becoming even greater. In this episode of FDE TV, we head to Paris, where we visit the global headquarters of ALD Automotive, a division of Societe Generale. Here, we speak with Stephane Renie, who is in charge of sales and marketing for their fleet management solutions. We also speak with John Saffrett, their global CIO, about why innovation is not only critical for business success, but is also a major factor in helping clients decide who they would work with. Given how fleet is becoming an even bigger figure on companies' balance sheet, how important is the need for collaboration between finance directors and fleet managers?
Over the years, it's fair to say that finance directors have always been a significant stakeholder in the decisions that organisations make around their mobility needs and around their company car provision to their employees. What we are seeing is that finance directors increasingly now are looking at the total cost of ownership as opposed to just the baseline rental figure. And they're also working more in collaboration with their HR counterparts to make sure that they consider all of the holistic aspects of the company car provision rather than just the bottom line in terms of the funding. And hence at ALD Automotive, we recognise that we have to offer a cost-efficient service and value to our clients, but increasingly we're looking to differentiate ourselves by those driver services and the new services we can offer over and above the core lease that most people would be focusing on in the past.
We find finance directors very involved, and I will give 2 or 3 examples of that involvement. Firstly, in the small and medium businesses, they are really the key decision makers, and not just in terms of the financial setup, but also the choice of the supplier. So the smaller the customer, I would say the more finance is on the front line in terms of interacting with companies like ALD Automotive. The second example where they've been very involved and are still very involved is when it comes to review the strategy of OPEX versus CAPEX. And this is, of course, valid for Western Europe and the mature markets, but it's even more true when you look at what we call the emerging fleet markets, such as Brazil, Mexico, Turkey, Russia, etc., where before choosing your leasing or fleet management supplier, the first decision to make ahead of that is whether you should insource or outsource, and whether you should buy or lease. And within this kind of study, internal study, then really finance has the lead. And the third one, of course, if we look ahead, is around the implementation of IFRS 16 and the new accounting standards, where I think that finance and procurement will have much more interaction than they've had in the past, in order to choose the best setup, basically, going forward and for their corporate.
When choosing a fleet management partner, some organizations concentrate on cost impact across their different geographical locations. Others are looking to get greater visibility and control over their fleet, whilst there are, of course, those for whom innovation takes priority.
Well, it is important for a multinational corporation to work with a provider that has a wide presence for a number of reasons. I think the first thing that comes to mind is cost. When you multiply the number of relationships that you have to manage from a supply point of view, then of course the cost increases automatically. I would say the visible and the hidden cost of managing multiple relationships. From a cost perspective as well, you could argue that when you have a global deal with a supplier, you can leverage on that relationship and get a solid set of terms and conditions. But I would say more importantly than cost, it's basically what it gives you in terms of visibility, control, and governance over your local markets. And basically the insurance that you get that whatever strategy you have conceived and designed centrally will actually be applied by your preferred supplier on a local basis. I would say on top of cost and governance, I think one of the key words in this kind of situation is trust, because when you work with a supplier that has a broad range of markets and services, and when you've been working with that supplier for a number of years, then issues get solved very quickly. You have access to the top management, escalations are very quick, so the whole relationship becomes much smoother.
Our key innovation initiatives at the moment really focus on the idea of the driver experience. 10 years ago, the driver experience in the automotive industry was focused on how fast the car would drive, how it would accelerate, how it would handle. Today, the driver experience is all about what happens to the driver when they're in the car. And what that means is, how do they connect with the car? How do they interface their smartphone with the in-car technology and entertainment systems? And how can they have a seamless moment from being outside the car to in the car and moving forward? All of our innovation initiatives focus on things linked to connected car. And what I mean by that is we talk about telematics units and how we can add additional services for the driver around improving their behavior, their fuel consumption, geolocalization, products and services. We're also looking at car sharing, which again is based on the principle of a connected car, and a number of other solutions around fuel moments and around remarketing and selling of the used cars, which all rely on e-commerce and innovation capability to be successful for us.
What are the key attributes required for a successful collaborative relationship between a fleet provider and the enterprise?
I think the key success factors for a trustful relationship and fruitful relationship is to have a good deal, a good base in terms of the hard facts and the data. The client, of course, needs to get a good deal, and we basically need to make some profit out of it. That's the fundamentals, I would say. I think we need to get to a point with our customers where there's a degree of collaboration, understanding, and trust that enables the supplier, in our case ALD Automotive, to really give our best in terms of the consultancy that we can provide, to really deliver the most optimal solutions for this particular customer, as opposed to a generic solution that we could have available, and to be as much as we can in a win-win sort of relationship. And the more we are engaged by the customer in this co-creation, I think the better we get.
The key ambition for ALD Automotive is to be the worldwide leader in the creation of mobility solutions. The cornerstone of this ambition is based upon customer experience and being the benchmark in the market for technology and innovation. So what steps have they taken in order to achieve their goal? And how do they see innovation changing the fleet industry in the coming years?
At ALD Automotive, we formed the Innovation Committee last year, and the intention of the Innovation Committee is to make sure that we have a shared view of the innovation challenges and initiatives across the group, and that as a group of change agents within the group, we decide where to prioritise our innovation efforts and where to invest our resources to support the innovation projects. The committee is made up of a number of senior executives from around the world, and our innovation approach is to develop those solutions as close to the client as possible. So we've moved away from a centralised model where everything is done out of the headquarters, and we try to develop the innovation products in our local countries where they can move faster, they're closer to the client and more in touch with their requirements. But we look to see how those solutions can be shared across the group. So at the point of inception, we develop them in a certain way, which makes them more reusable for other ALD Automotive entities. I think increasingly the innovation focus of the fleet industry will be on the driver experience. All of the lessors and the manufacturers within the industry are constantly looking at the opportunity to create more moments with the driver and have the chance to build brand awareness, brand loyalty, and develop better experiences for the driver. And if we want to really look into the future in 10 years' time in the world of autonomous cars, the driver suddenly has a period of time where they're in the car, where they're no longer focusing on changing gear or being aware of what's around them, of holding the steering wheel. And it's really at that point the creation of those new driver experiences comes into their full power. Innovation is important for ALD Automotive because we're in a sector that's changing every day at the moment. You can't pick up a newspaper without reading about Apple or Google or Tesla or Uber, and they're all providing products and services in our industry that directly impact upon our client. In order for us to compete with those companies, we have to develop our own innovative spirit, and we have to continue to be innovative so that our clients remain loyal to ALD Automotive going forward.
With innovation comes, of course, new ideas and new thinking, all of which still need to reach certain industry standards. So what are the biggest regulatory and compliance issues that have impacted fleet management and global mobility for providers as well as users?
Well, I would say the main challenges that have impacted both ourselves and our customers from a regulatory standpoint are around taxation, because that's a key driver of the choice you make in fleet management between the different solutions that you have potentially on the shelf that range from cash allowance to full service leasing and outright purchase and all that. And by definition, taxation is different from market to market, and it varies over time. And there's an increasing pressure to increase the taxation burden across the different markets. So we see a lot of activity on that front, and we have to be very aware of what's happening, and our customers also have to be extremely aware of what is happening in order to always have the best solution from a financial point of view. If we look ahead, I think two things are going to impact vehicle fleet management massively on the regulatory field, I would say, in the next few years. The first one is personal data protection, meaning the more we are asked to manage the relationship with the drivers directly, the more we'll have to interact with them, get data from them, and of course the issue of protecting personal data becomes paramount in that matter. And the second big thing that is going to happen is, of course, the change of the accounting standards, so the enforcement of IFRS 16 that is due in 2019. And that's also part of regulation and compliance. And this new set of accounting standards is going to bring about a number of additional data requirements, but also a lot of, I would say, considerations on the client side as to whether their current purchasing solution or acquisition solution is still the best for the years to come.
Going forward, individuals will have the freedom to design their own personalized corporate mobility solutions, with fleet management providers concentrating even more on brand awareness with the introduction of driverless cars. However, at the core of fleet management is the ability to remove or minimize the risks associated with vehicle investment, improve efficiency and productivity, reduce the overall transportation and staff costs, all whilst reaching 100% compliance with government legislation across all markets. Smart technologies provide easy access to top quality services, which in turn create sustainable value.